we all know the topic that I'm going to be dealing with today, and the whole uh, idea is to put a disclaimer to say that the study is not an attempt to express any of my political views or to promote any form of illegal or violent kind of protest. But the aim of the study is to focus on art and look deeper into the role that it plays in our society. So I'm sure everybody who's here is here because of some kind of interest or association with art. And let us first start questioning ourselves that what is art according to us. So if you look at a very typical kind of an image that comes in our mind when we talk about art, it is of say a masterpiece in some museum somewhere in the West, which is bringing together a lot of people who are experts in that field or connected to art in some way. Or we can look at art as an exhibition of an artist's work in an art gallery, where again you have art connoisseurs who come and engage with that art, critique that art. And the other image of art is, of course, the luxury homes, the homes of the rich, where they use art that is spread across their homes and properties as a sort of luxury decor. So the association with these arts deals with appreciation of aesthetics, which of course art is, with leisure and with privilege. So it also takes one to question that is this the only way of looking at art, or are there other ways of looking at art, such as this, or this, or this? Art which makes you express what you have in mind, which makes you think, which makes you question what is happening in and around you in society. Art which is a mirror of what is happening around us. Art which gives a very strong critique on the way our society, our world is functioning. And art which calls out for justice, which calls out for change. And art, very importantly, which is for everyone. Art which is not the prerogative only of the trained or of a certain class of people or who understand art, who practice art, but art as a means of expression for anything that is there within us to express, to share, and to participate in. And art which can make people not only comfortable but also uncomfortable. So, as the artist Bansky has said, that art is something which should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. So, let us start by looking at the history of protest art. What is the last recorded history of where did it begin? So, it takes us to the town of Wittenberg in Germany, where Martin Luther actually put up, nailed the 85 theses on the doors of the church. So these were thoughts which were challenging the existing church, challenging the corruption that existed in religion. And for the first few days, it was ignored. People thought that, they didn't realize the importance of it. But within a month or so, it had shaken Europe. And it actually caused a lot of upheaval in the system. And that discontent finally led to a faction within Christianity, and the Protestant side of Christianity was born. So such was the power of art even during the 16th century. Art also played a very important role in the Second World War. Here we are looking at two artworks. One is by Arthur Schick, who was a Jewish artist, and in this particular painting, he is depicting Hitler as the Antichrist. And Arthur Schick was known, he was a Polish Jew, and he was known as a one-man war against the Nazis, and he conducted his war through the arts. And what he said was, the art is not my aim, but it is my means. He used it as a means, as a weapon to fight the Second World War. The second artist that we cover today is Ben Shahn, who also used art to document the horrors of the Nazi regime. And ultimately, his art got picked up by the US government, and they converted it into posters, which were then used to spread the news as to what is actually happening in Nazi Germany. So Other than this, art has also been a very important part of the Indian independence movement. So I don't know how many recognize or have studied this painting in college, but this is a part of the Swadeshi movement, which was happening in the early 20th century, and the Bengal School of Art. And this painting has been done by Arbindranath Tagore, who was part of the Bengal School of Art. So he did it in the year 1907, and then later to participate in the nationalist movement, he named this painting as Bharat Mata, where he personifies India and considers Bharat Mata as a giver of food and knowledge and clothing and spirituality. And today, more than 100 years later, after this painting was done, we are all still associated with this concept of Bharat Mata. So, such can be the power of one piece of art which is produced by an artist. This is another art which was done again by an artist called Zainul Abedin, who was part of the Bengal School of Art. This was done in 1943 and it reflected the famine in Bengal and the atrocities that were happening on the locals because of the policies of the British. So these were the ways in which people at that time, the artists, were trying to reach out to the people in to express the wrongs that were happening in society and looking for justice through their pieces of art. Now, there was still a kind of a limited reach to this art because these were individual paintings which were done and they were reaching out to a certain set of people. What transformed this and put it into another orbit was the role of paper and print technology. So the moment print technology started taking over, art could be replicated, it could be put into newspapers, it could be put into magazines, it could be made into posters. And the power of the art was actually reaching out to the people. So this started a second kind of a upheaval of protest art, and we will see some examples of what how it reached out. The most famous example, I'm sure everyone here has seen some form of this sketch or drawing or poster or painting, because this is called the clenched fist, and it has been used over a period of almost a century for various kind of protest movements, starting with the Mexican Revolution, to the students movement during the Vietnam War in the US, to the revolution in Paris. The French students used it during the Paris Revolution. It was used by the Black Panther Party, and as we move on through the presentation, you'll find other forms in which it is being used even now. So imagine the power of one piece of art which was produced almost a century back, how many times it has replicated, how many protest movements it has supported, and how many people have resonated with the idea of this kind of art. uh, the print media also started replicating art or taking art forward in the form of fabric and merchandise. So I mean, here you have the Marxist revolutionary Juvera, who was there were flags, there were posters, there were t-shirts. I mean, I'm sure this is a very common image which has been seen by us, though we were not even associated with the movement. You'll see it on mugs, you'll see it on t-shirts and all sorts of merchandise. So art started becoming, that one image, the power of the image started growing in various ways and forms. Another example of that is this image or this poster of I Am a Man, which was taken during a strike in 1968 in the US. This was a Memphis sanitation strike. And it was done by 1,300 black sanitation workers who were protesting against the poor, working conditions that they were in. And the basis of this came from, one of the writings which said, I am an invisible man. So they took away the word invisible, and the whole impact was just that I am a man, hear my voice. And if this was one piece of art, what happens when 1,300 people come forth with the same message? That entire, echo that is created by that one message, one simple 4 words, few syllables, reaching out to hundreds and thousands of people, and it is still, after half a century, we are still looking at it and marveling at the power that it had. This is another very, very interesting image. I'm sure, again, most of you would have come across some form of this during your, surfing of the net or somewhere. So this was a piece of art, or I would say, a poster which was done by this artist J. Howard Miller during the World War II. It was done to somewhere, kind of encourage the women who were working during the war as nurses or at the Pearl Harbor. And this, it was used at that time, and somewhere it got lost in history. And even the artist's other works are not really known that much. But in the 1980s, this piece of art was again rediscovered, and then it started becoming very popular and widely reproduced, and the Smithsonian magazine featured it on its cover in 1994, and now it is the most requested poster from the National Archives of the US. And today, if you see, it has actually got so many other replications of it for different movements, whether it is a feminist movement or against artificial intelligence. Now it is being used during the pandemic to look at the health workers and their contribution to the society. And the latest version is a few weeks old for the Black Lives Matter protest. So one piece of art, which was made in 1943, I think, has now, I mean, even today, and these are just 4 applications I have shown. There are hundreds which are available on the web. If we look at the next revolution which came in technology, it was the evolution of the television. But art missed that bus. It was never, even today, it is not really a means of promoting any kind of protest art. The reason being very simple, that the television and media is in the hands of people in power, and most of these revolutions happen somewhere questioning that the people in power. So Jill Scott was a famous, jazz and soul artist from the US in the 1970s, and he wrote this very popular poem and song which said that revolution will not be televised. Which is, again, this is a quote which is still used in many protests across the world, because that has not changed. The revolution is still not being televised. Uh, but television did not really matter that much after a point, because protest art jumped onto a new bandwagon, and that was the internet. And this propelled it into yet another orbit, which was so fast moving that we will, there are some case studies which I have, which talk about how and it is impacting every day, the kind of issues that we are dealing with, and how we are looking at it through the media, the media of the internet. So let us look at the work of this artist from Turkey. He is a photographer, and his modus operandi, so to say, is very, very simple. He makes a collage. The collage consists of 2 pictures, and these 2 pictures show the contrasting worlds that we exist in, the worlds of the privileged and the worlds of the underprivileged. So he picks up issues like, of course, racism and politics, war, famine, migration, poverty, everything. It's basically East versus West, and it is extremely staggering to see the impact of what is happening. There are 2 different worlds which are existing, and how they come together through one collage, wherein you have one part of the world which is relaxing in a cafe and drinking coffee, and you have another part of the world which is simultaneously walking miles to get one bucket of potable water for their own use. On one hand, you have people who are shopping in malls and spending their money for their own personal luxury, and on the other hand, at the same time, in different part of the world, there are people who are walking for kilometers, for days, because they don't have a place, a shelter, a roof for themselves and for their families. On one hand, you have huge propagation of religion and religious practices and peace and harmony, and on the other, there is tremendous amount of torture which is happening in the name of war and in the name of justice for war. Then education, which we all take for granted, something which comes to us very, very easily. And we have another world which exists even today, right now, where education is not a luxury, it is not a privilege. And children's lives, their education, their childhood is completely torn. Families are completely torn by the impact of war, while in another part of the world, somebody else is very calmly chilling in a bathtub and complaining maybe about something else. And of course, the entire idea of spirituality and having a higher power which is looking after us, and at the other end, you have the humane side of it, where a mother is actually nurturing a baby and maybe does not have the food or the medicine to take care of her child. So these are the realities which we have, and the power of the internet has helped bring all of this into our screens and into our phones and into our lives. uh, Another very powerful medium is graphic art. And I have just taken three examples of Indian artists and what they have been doing during the pandemic, sitting at their homes. So we are in the midst of a pandemic. We are in the midst of a lockdown. We can't leave our homes. And there is another side of the lockdown where the people are walking for days, and migrants are facing a lot of problems. It's again two different realities which are happening, which have been captured extremely well by artists again on the internet media, through social media, which all young artists who are expressing their agony sitting in their on their computers and their phones, and capturing what is happening in our world today in terms of very beautiful graphics. And then we come to meme art, something which we consume every day. I'm sure all students and I think everybody else relates to this. And though we look at it as fun and jokes and keep forwarding it, there is an underlying sense of rebellion and like a political rhetoric which is associated with a lot of the meme arts that are there today. So my favorite amongst that is Dude with Sign, who's there on social media, and this man is out every day or every other day with a piece of cardboard on which he is questioning the society. He's questioning consumerism, he's questioning capitalism, he's questioning politics, he's questioning everything around him. And it's done in a very, very simple manner, and it's reaching out to millions. Of course, climate change, other social aspects of how we live our lives, live double lives for convenient truths and reassuring lies, are all very, very well expressed through memes. And when we're talking of memes, we cannot forget the protest that happens for architecture students and architects, where we know that death is not an excuse when it comes to working on a submission or working on a client kind of brief which we have to respond to. So this is another way of protesting against the conditions that we work in. So meme art is the art form of today, the protest art form of today. And very often we think that protest art is all about taking a poster and going out into a group of people and protesting against the establishment and protesting against a political kind of an agenda. But that's not true. There are so many things which protest arts can pick up and have been picking up across continents, across the globe. So let us look at what are the issues which protest art has raised over a period of time. So of course, anti-war is one of the very, very major issues. This is one of the pieces of art by an unknown artist where he picks up the issue of the children and their the conflict of the Syrian war and how it has affected children. Uh, Human rights is another very, very, very big issue which is picked up through protest arts. So this image was very widely used in 2013 when the CEO of Nestle came up with a statement saying that water is not a human need, it should be privatized. And there was a huge uproar in society. And I mean, nothing can express it better than one image. You can write pages, you can give lectures and do protests, but just looking at this one image, it just says it all. It doesn't have any caption, it has nothing, but it talks about the disparity that exists in society and how a large part of the world is controlled by a very, very small set of people, and it can be changed so easily by just unclenching your fist. It can be changed. So it's a very important message about human rights and very, very beautifully given through art. We are in the month of June, wherein all the Pride marches happen. And the history behind that is that in 1969 there were the Stonewall riots which happened in Manhattan against the LGBTQ community. And since then, the month of June has been used to create awareness and equal rights at workplaces, in society, and in the world as such. And here again, you see the clenched fist coming back to us in another form and helping us understand the issues faced by another set of people. Of course, the gender equality, gender issues are very, very well, somewhere expressed through art. This is a piece from Egypt, after the change of governance, there was a lot of issues about safety of women, and one of the Egyptian artists came up with this very powerful piece of art to express his anguish about what was happening in Egypt. So, what are the other issues which are raised? There's a trigger warning here because some images may not be suitable for everyone, but I suggest that you watch it so you know what's happening around us. So climate change is another very big issue which is picked up through protest art. This is an installation art, and it has been put up in 2019 along the canals of Venice, and it very beautifully talks about, without saying a word, it can talk about how the entire globe is finally drowning in the effects of climate change and global warming and the rising waters of the ocean. Another very important set of artwork is done by this artist or this set of artists to do with animal rights. And believe me, I have chosen the most subtle images that were available because I did not want to shock everyone. But it sets us thinking that if the roles are reversed, if animals, somewhere uh, take on the roles of the humans and the humans have to suffer at the hands of animals, how would the world be? I suggest everybody should log on to this website and go and hunt for these and look at each and every image and question ourselves as to how we are treating the other species that existed in our planet. The veganism movement, again, talking about the horrors that exist in the kitchens or in the slaughterhouses. We see a very happy Ronald sitting there and welcoming us, but we don't see where our food comes from. We just assume that it is our right to eat a certain animal, and the fact that we have been trained to believe that a certain set of animals are our friends and a certain set of animals are meant as food. So there are a lot of pieces of art in this, and I suggest everybody should go and take a look at what exists. So ultimately we are all designers here, architects. We exist and we work in the built environment, we design built environments. So I also look very closely at what is the role that the city plays in terms of protest art. And this is an image from New York. And in the 1970s and 80s, there was a huge unorganized kind of a movement of the youth who went around, kind of plastering the entire city, the subways, the metro and the train stations and the walls, whatever was available in the city with graffiti. And it was a means of, kind of expressing their anguish and coming up with, it was just an expression of, their resentment towards what was happening around them. And this was not at all accepted. Graffiti was completely unacceptable. It was called that it was scarring the city and it would have no impact on, what they wanted to say. But if it did not have an impact, then New York would not spend $300 million from 1972 to 1989 to get this graffiti removed from the city. So if you see any piece of art on the walls of the city and if it has been removed, please understand that it has had a huge impact. People are scared that it is going to make a change. And that's why, that whole idea of removing that art from the eyes of the people, because it does have an impact on hundreds and thousands and millions of people who are going to be visiting the city and seeing it every day. So when we look at the role of the city, again, we look at, three artists and how they have used the city as a canvas to somewhere put across their ideas. The first artist I talk about is JR. There's a beautiful TED talk that he has given, and I suggest everybody should go. And maybe what I'll do is I'll put all the links somewhere with Manthan so that he can share it with the students. And he has been functioning from 2005 onwards. He's a French artist. He started off in Paris painting things on the subway and things, and I have picked up 3 pieces of art which he has done across geographies, across continents. The first one was done in 2005 in Rio de Janeiro. So this was amongst the poorest favelas which exist in Rio, and he went across photographing women, and he photographed only their eyes, and then he enlarged those images and he plastered the entire, the entire favela exists on slopes. So overnight, somewhere mysteriously the entire slope was plastered with these images of the eyes of the people who live there. Again, an expression of what lies in their thoughts, what are they trying to say, what are they trying to ask for. And it was titled Women Are Heroes. So this got a lot of recognition worldwide. And another very impactful piece of art that he did was in Palestine and Israel in 2008. So what he did was he went around photographing people. So he photographed Arabs and he photographed Jews. And again, this is known as the largest illegal exhibition on earth. So 15,000 square feet of paper was plastered across cities, different cities, in Palestine and Israel, where he put pictures of one Arab and one Jew next to each other. So the message was extremely strong. People were all smiling, and it is possible to live together and smile together, and believe in a different world. So this then got both these projects. I think got picked up by the Tate, the London Tate Gallery, and then it got exhibited in many other places. But this was illegal to start off with. And the third one is a very new kind of one of his newest installations, which he did on the US-Mexico border, where he shows a small child who is peeping over the border. Children don't understand borders; they are only lines on paper, and not part of the natural environment. And we will see more on the architecture of the borderland later in this presentation. So the other artist that is very well known in this field is Banksy, who has been associated with anonymous street art since 1990s. Nobody knows who he is. He is anonymous. Overnight, you will find places across UK and other parts of the world where his artwork suddenly most of it is stencil art, and it will suddenly come up overnight, and it will question things like this artwork is to do with being humane, and every protest does not need to be violent. It does not need to be kind of you can negotiate kindly. You don't need to negotiate in a very violent kind of a manner. A very famous piece of art that he has done in France was a picture of Steve Jobs, where he's the without saying anything, the title of this is called The Son of a Migrant, where just to make people realize that Steve Jobs is the son of a Syrian migrant, and if that Syrian migrant was not let into Britain, maybe Steve Jobs, not Britain, US, Steve Jobs and Apple and the millions of dollars that he pays in taxes to the US would not exist. So we start looking at migrants in a different light. This is one of his latest works, which is called The Scar of Bethlehem. So he put this up in a hotel lobby just during Christmas at the West Bank, where the Israeli occupied territory. And instead of the Star of Bethlehem, he has actually punctured a hole of a mortar shell and made a manger where Christ was born. And again, a very cynical kind of a observation of what is happening in Israel and that geography today. Latest work again made during the pandemic is to do with the movement which is very active now in the US, and it's talking about how the entire liberty and fraternity and the idea of freedom in the US could be burning because of racial issues. This is another art piece which has a very interesting story. We came upon this art piece in Budapest during our study tour last year. And so the story behind this is the Prime Minister of Hungary, and he had built a railway line from Budapest to his village. And people were very, somehow agonized by his action. And overnight, one day, the entire city of Budapest was plastered with these stencil arts of the Prime Minister of Hungary sitting on a Thomas train. And people were clicking selfies. It was going viral over the net. And soon, the government came out and, as I said, painted everything over. This was only one piece which was left in the city, and they could not paint it over because it was over private property. And people thought that, Banksy has come to Budapest and he has painted this. And, later Bansky's declared that, no, it was not me. And they found out that it was one of the local parties called the Hungarian Two-Tailed Dog Party, which always, does a major critique on its governance. And they were the ones who had started this movement. So, I mean, this one artist can actually inspire many others to carry out a similar kind of movements in different parts of the world. So let us look at how it has inspired Indians. And that brings us to the work of an Indian artist, again, an anonymous Indian artist called, he goes by the name Tyler Street Art, and has been working in India since 2012. Again, anonymous, overnight, there are parts of Bombay. A lot of work is in Bombay. A lot of it is in Bandra. Students who are moving around here would have noticed it somewhere. And again, the very hard hitting punches on famous personalities in industry, politics, the crime. But he also looks at many other issues, which includes things like yellow journalism and its impact. This one is in Bandra, in no, yes, no, around Chapel Road. And during the RA protest, he was again very, very active, where he spoke outright through his artwork on the hypocrisy. This painting again has been painted over as of now. And again, the whole idea of having the freedom to protest despite whatever circumstances are there around you. He also talks about climate change and makes us question what kind of a world we are leaving for the next generation. Is it a world, or is it a time bomb which is going to go away by 2050, as they say? And also the condition of the street children, who form a very, very large part of our city. So while the monsoon brings thoughts of chai and pakodas and romance to a lot of people, there are a whole lot of people out there in the streets with a broken umbrella and not having access to basic sanitation and shelter. So in this study, I also looked at how a city can be used as a canvas for art. So what are the different parts of the city which provide scope for somewhere doing art? So of course, boundary walls are definitely very much there. Another Tyler work which talks about consumerism and how from the ape we are going to a consumerist kind of ape. Building facades, very commonly used. For the scale, like if you see JR's work, it is all on building facade, because they give you that very, very large scale, larger than life kind of images. And this one was made during the Iraq war, which says that if you first can't succeed, then you call for an airstrike. Public spaces and plazas again provide space for art installations, which make us question various things in society. So this was again another artwork which was done on climate change. So the entire artwork was done in chiseled in ice, and it was meant to kind of melt down in 5 days, bringing about awareness towards what's happening at the poles and what is happening to the polar bears, and then also affecting the rest of us. Floor spaces, very commonly used. This was some anti-establishment art, I think in the Philippines or Thailand. I don't know. I'll find out. I'll tell you. Sidewalks. So in Paris, I also heard of this in Budapest. Wherever there is a pothole, the artists come and fill it up with artwork. So this was the Let's Color project, and this is, I believe, some kind of fabric and embroidery and things which has been filled up with. So artists do not need kind of any special canvas. Even adversity can become an opportunity where you fill it up and you bring attention to what is happening in your city. Holograms, again a new form of art where you can temporarily put up a piece of art to protest against a certain happening which is there in your city, or anything else that is happening. Urban infrastructure, I had some other pictures of dustbins, bus stops, which I did not put, but any kind of urban infrastructure. This is again in Bombay, unless it has been painted over. Then signages, visibility, it gives you visibility and can be used very well for protest art. And the natural environment. So this, like beaches to bring about awareness of the plastic pollution, the trees to bring about awareness about the Amazon fires. So anything, you just, you name it, and it can be used somewhere very creatively by artists to put across their ideas and express their thoughts. So I'm coming to the last segment of my presentation, and I'm presenting a study of a project, art project, which was very, very close to my heart. This is to do with reimagining the US-Mexico border wall. So there is this architect, Ronald Real, and he has studied the architecture of the borderland. And that brought him to study the borders of US and Mexico. And he started realizing that, basically we are all one landscape. But just drawing one line of paper can separate, cultures, can separate people, can separate families. And he started thinking of means and ways of addressing this through arts and artifacts and objects. And the first thing that he came up with was a board game which talked about interaction between people on either side of the border, and there's a border in between, and there can be a game which can happen virtually between people on two sides. He came up with a range of these snow globes. Like this one in particular is talking about a table where people on both sides of the border sit together and share food. I mean, one of the best ways of getting people together is through sharing food. And a very, very beautiful project that he did was to do with one of the signages that existed on the US Mexico border. So this was a signage which was designed by this artist called John Hood, and it was put up on the border to somewhere warn the motorists of refugee of people migrating or running across the borders from Mexico to US illegally. So I mean, he had to do his job, so he did his job. But the artist that he was, he actually used, this is the face of a very famous US civil rights activist, Chavez, and he used the image of a small girl with pigtails, somewhere which provokes a sense of sympathy between people. And this sign was put up. So what Ronald Rail did was he took the sign and he made a small change. So just by turning the figures, in a different direction, the whole idea of caution could be, sending out a whole message of reunite. And he managed to get this put up at a place where it was visible to all. So with very little, a lot can be done to raise awareness about things which are impacting so many people around us and impacting us also. He also had many imaginations of what could be done with the actual wall, the US-Mexico wall. So one of his imaginations was of constructing a giant xylophone, where you use it as a weapon of mass percussion to somewhere pull down the whole idea of borders and bring people together through music. The other idea was to put up a giant screen and screen a single movie which people from both sides of the border can watch and get united through cinema. And another very beautiful idea was to convert the wall itself into a bookshelf and build a library which is accessible from both sides. So it's no longer a wall, it's a bookshelf. And you have exchange of ideas, you have exchange of knowledge. And finally, what got executed was this. So this is an art installation wherein people from both sides can go use it. And it is a very, very subtle kind of a reminder that what happens between the politics and the people on either side has an impact. So what you do on one side has an impact on the other side. So you have to be very careful about how you behave. And a wall which was used to divide people has actually been used to unite people and bring people together. And that is, the power of art. So I would end by just two things which I wanted to add and say. That, I mean, this entire quote by Jhumpa Lahiri, who says that the power of art is to wake us up, to strike us to our depths, and to change us. And though we know that our revolution will not be televised, we can always see to it that the revolution can be painted. And as we end, I would just like to leave you all with a question and a thought. We question what is art. So I think there is a need and a time to question what is protest. Is it only bringing awareness? Is it bringing justice? Or is it bringing change? And if you look very closely at the word protest, you will see that there is a pro in that protest. So it doesn't need to be anti-establishment. It doesn't need to be anti-governance. It doesn't need to be anti-world and only talk about what is wrong in the world. What if we use protest as a positive idea and use art as a tool to spread that positive idea of a world which is defined by love, by kindness, by compassion for mankind and for all the other species who live on this planet. And I think that would be the best kind of protest that the world needs. We don't need, it doesn't need to be anti, it can always be pro a certain idea that we live and we believe in. Yeah, so thanks a lot. Thank you.
Right.